It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to the program. It is County-Wide. Brad Miller with you, and we're happy to welcome into our studio today from Chino Valley Fire District, Chief Scott Freitag is here, and Rob Zazueta. Rob, PIO, you wear a lot of hats over there.
I do.
PIO is what we're going to call you today. Public Information Officer is how our listeners will be most familiar with Rob. And Chief, we say good day to you too. Happy to have you here, guys.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Going to talk about a couple of things. There's so much at this time of year, and we'll cover some of that today. And in upcoming programs, we'll talk a little bit more about wintertime safety, kitchen hazards, things like that we start to think of as we move. Gosh, here we are in October, into the fall and into that kind of a season. But I want to back up just a tiny bit and start with the problem that we had kind of at the height of our monsoon. And Chino Valley, this year, your district, you happen to have two incidents just a few weeks apart of a couple of ladies getting hurt significantly, burning those pesky weeds that we're all dealing with all through our monsoon season. And Rob, you and I talked about this when it happened. So yes. Maybe could you recap for us kind of what occurred?
Well, within a 10-day span, we ended up having to fly two separate females out to the Maricopa Burn Unit that sustained some serious injuries while burning some weeds. After the monsoon rains, everyone is ready to get all those dried out weeds and get them off their property. And the problem came when not only they were burning the weeds, but they used some accelerants to speed the wet weeds along and try and get them burned as quick as possible. And the vapors of those actually flashed over on both of those patients, and they sustained some pretty serious injuries. Now,
we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit of fire science today, too, I think, because the vapors was the key to both these incidents, it sounds like, from what we've talked about. Chief, were these ladies using, I know I've seen, like, advertised those little kind of weed-burning torches. Do we know what they were using specifically? I mean, were they kind of out of bounds of how you'd want to do this operation anyway?
Rob, do you know what they were using?
Well, from our understanding, they were just using matches and those the snap lighters,
like charcoal.
The charcoal lighters.
Simple. Okay, that anybody could probably get a hold of.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't take any special apparatus to cause some problems.
And what the problem there is after they put the accelerant on the weeds, the vapors are there, and then by leaning down to light that, they were right in the vapor, and so. When the vapor flashed on them, that's when they got their injuries.
A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it's the liquid that burns, and it's not. It's the vapor that burns. So you enter that vapor cloud, the flammable atmosphere is not there at the brush. The flammable atmosphere is as you approach in that vapor.
Okay.
So they walk in with the lit lighter or lit match, and that's where you have the problem in the flashback.
Gosh. So you've got liquid on the ground in this case, but you've got basically if you will, kind of a little dome of
correct.
Yeah. And the more accelerant used, the larger that cloud can be, and
well, you gas up your car, you can sometimes get that, and I guess that's kind of what this was. I don't know if this was gasoline, but a lot of accelerants are going to bear the same kind of problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And then in our burn permit, it's spelled out there clearly. No use of accelerants is suggested to help with the burning of weeds because of that reason.
Yeah. No, I know you can't speak for these ladies specifically, so we won't try to do that. But I mean, I pull out the weed eater and just go to town. Burning weeds, I guess, is what considered a more kind of permanent solution.
I think a lot of it's burning brush as opposed to the weeds. So they'll collect the brush around their property and make a large pile of brush. And then I assume in these cases they had poured an accelerant on that large pile.
I see.
So that could be limbs, it could be weeds, it could be basically anything that would be a nuisance in your yard that you want to try to burn and get rid of.
Okay. And with permits, most of that, I think, on most of the districts and departments around is legal.
Yes.
There's rules to follow, as you said, with the permit about burning off those things. And you're all for having folks clean up their yards, but there's a safe way to do it. Do we have an update on how either of these ladies is doing? Do you know?
Last I heard that their treatment that they received at Maricopa Burn Unit was successful. Okay. And they are making recovery. So.
Okay. Well, that's good news.
Yes, it is. Very good news.
Gosh, yeah, just days apart and in the same district, and it goes to show that the simplest thing can just turn on you just like that. And it was
absolutely.
They were probably the first to say, I shouldn't have done it that way.
I'm sure of it.
You know, what it points out to us is that while the burn permits are out there, people have been getting the burn permits for years, and they're at the point now where they just sign off on it and take their burn permit, but they don't actually read the information that's in there, and that's why Rob and I and the district felt it was very important to get back out and re-educate the public on here's some things you really need to be wary of. And when you have 2 victims in 10 days, that points out that there is some sort of a problem, a lack of education, and an area that we can step up our efforts.
Well, let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know kind of the fall burn permits. I think a lot of the districts now, you can get a permit, and a lot of them are good for a year, if not even more permanently. So I don't know if we kind of think of it as seasonal, but indeed, after the monsoon and after all the great rains that we've had, come those weeds and come those tree limbs and all that. And so there's going to be a lot of folks, aren't they, kind of winterizing, if you will, and getting ready and drawing permits or using the one they've already got and getting out there. What, Chief, is... Don't use accelerants. I guess that'll be number one on our list. What are some of the other things people ought to know about?
Well, one of the things that we try to get out, especially in the Chino Valley area, we have a lot of high winds. And just last week we had significant winds moving through the area. And it was very important for Rob at that time. He went to our Facebook page and got some information out to the public that, hey, no burning today. There's a burn ban due to the winds. Right. The problem is trying to get that information out to the public. Facebook's a great tool, but there's a lot of people that burn brush that aren't on Facebook or don't have access to the internet. So how do we get that information out to them and let them know, hey, the winds are 30, 40, 50 miles an hour today, don't burn. And you would think when you're looking at the winds that it's pretty obvious, okay, don't burn today, but the reality is, depending on where the people are at, they may not realize the significance of those winds and the problems that can cause.
Yeah. I've had some experience with this, because we'll do that. We'll get if we get a red flag warning. And the Forest Service, I think a lot of people tend to think of it as Forest Service that's mostly affected, no campfires, and don't think about it as being in town and how that kind of crosses a lot of boundaries and borders, and why that's important. But yeah, if you go out at 8 o'clock in the morning and the wind is calm, but they don't know how long your fire is going to go. Right. And I've called in a permit to burn and say no, and I'm thinking, oh, come on, it's beautiful. But by 1 o'clock, indeed, the wind is high. And so they've got to kind of look at that bigger picture. Right. For safety's sake. That can be a little frustrating.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like,
I
it's been windy every weekend all fall, and I can't get this done. But
and you also have to take into account that what could occur if you did go ahead and burn in those kind of situations. And just last year we had an incident where someone started a burn early in the morning and didn't fully extinguish it. And by mid-afternoon, when the 30, 40 mile per hour winds picked up, it turned into a 60-acre wildfire. So
dead out. Yes. Just like when you're camping.
Yes, dead out.
Backyard fire. Yeah. I've heard a couple of things on this, so let's get it straight for our listeners. I've heard, and I don't know, I'm not recommending this, that you should be able to put your hand pretty much in those coals, that they should be darn near cool enough to be able to safely do that. Is that, I mean, with water and dirt and everything else, it should be that out.
Well, the biggest thing is when there is a pile of weeds, you want to get that flattened out. You know, because when there is that pile, you have some heat underneath. So allow it to burn enough to where it has burnt all the way down to the ground, and you're able to spray water where there's no more smoke or steam coming out of there. So,
I suppose if you're burning thin, reedy weeds, and then if you're burning like tree trimmings, you're going to have two different kinds of things.
The finer fuels will burn really quick, and you won't, and it'll be obvious when those are out. But those larger limbs and tree brush, things like that, that's what kicks up later on when the winds pick up. So
you know, we talk about all these, and you got to get a permit, you've got to do these kinds of things, and so on. But Chief, I know even if there's some frustration getting it done, you're all about, please, folks, clean up your yards as good as you can. That safety zone around the house, that defensible space, all those things apply, even in town, as well as folks in the urban interface and
Well, and think about, you know, in the burn permit, it's going to tell you about how far away you should keep any brush piles from your house before you burn them.
Yeah.
And with the monsoon seasons, and this year being especially wet, you're going to have additional grasses and weeds that have grown up around. So you need to make sure the area is very clear, that you do have the defensible space from your house, but also you have a defensible space around where you're going to burn that brush. Because that fire can spread rather quickly and get to the home. I heard a call go out the other night that, you know, for a residential fire, and the initial reports were that somebody had a burn permit, they had been burning brush, it got away from them and got up to the house. Yeah. So it's very important that you pay attention to that burn permit, keep it at a proper distance, and watch out for what's around you. And think about, as we move into spring and everything dries out over the coming months, as we move away from the monsoon season, all of those long grasses and weeds that have grown up because of the wet season, that's more fuel for a fire.
Always that double-edged sword.
Yeah.
We love the rain, but it brings up all of those. One last thing before our break. Most of the burn permits, and I live in Clarkdale, and mine says this one person's got to be by that fire all the time. Do you ever think about making that too? It's hard for one person to stand, you know, without the distractions of family life and phones ringing and any of those kinds of things, about maybe having two people. And I know that would be hard for folks that live by themselves. Yeah. So,
and that might be something that we need to look at in the future. But one of our goals is to make sure that we're educating people in safe practices while they're doing it, to eliminate any other
follow the rules as they are right now, and you're going to have a pretty safe fire.
One of the rules we like to go by is the 5-10-30 rule. It's small piles no bigger than 5 foot in parameter, at least a 10-foot area that you're burning, and at least 30 feet away from any structure. So
good numbers to remember. Let's take a short break. We'll come back talking with the guys from Chino Valley Fire, Chief Scott Freitag, PIO Rob Zazueta, and a short break, and we're back to Countywide right after this.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Welcome back to the program again, countywide, and Scott Freitag, Rob Zazueta from Chino Valley Fire District are here today, and again, we welcome you to studio, fellas. Some of the other things, let's kind of transition a little bit, talking about fall and cooler weather, and we've even had some chilly nights already. Space heaters. Gosh, it seems like every year, from not just Chino Valley, but from around the area, there's one or two fires that get traced back to space heaters. Yeah. Chief, what's the kind of the key? What's maybe the one thing to really know when you're using a space heater in say one room or whatever?
Well, there's actually several things that are very important. The first is read the directions.
That's important with
on
everything.
The product. Yeah, read the directions.
A good idea.
You know, a lot of people tend to, hey, we want the space heater, but the cord's short, we want it over here. And so they'll grab just any extension cord, and it may not be rated for the type of wattage that space heater is going to draw.
They can draw a lot.
They can
typically,
draw a lot.
Don't they?
Yeah.
Electric, yeah.
And we've seen, I know Rob and I have both seen, where somebody will grab the $1 extension cord at the checkout on the way out of the store, and they plug a space heater into that, and that overheats and it causes a fire. A lot of the newer space heaters have a lot of safety mechanisms built into it, so if they get tipped over, they'll turn off. They have GFIs built in, so they'll shut off if there's a problem. But a lot of people still have the older space heaters and that don't have those safety devices in them. You go into your room at night, you get ready for bed, you take your robe, you throw it over, it lands on top of the space heater, or it's by bedding, or it's by your curtains in your room. And those are all problems. That's why it's important to read the manufacturer's recommendations. How much space should you have around it from any flammable products? Yeah. If it's older and it doesn't have any of the safety devices, we absolutely recommend that you look to purchase a new space heater, one that does have the safety. And you also have, a lot of people have the little heaters that are propane, and they don't realize that propane heater, while it's good outside if you're working in your garage and you've got good ventilation, is not for use inside a home without proper ventilation, because you have carbon monoxide.
That's across the board.
Absolutely.
If it's a fuel space heater, it's not for indoor use, or not for, unless it's very well ventilated, like a garage door's open, say.
That's correct.
Okay, so just flat out, I know that you've seen it, and we've had news stories. Paul, David, and I have both been doing this for a long, long time, and you just hate when you hear, even after this kind of conversation, and people, I don't think you just go about your life and you don't think about some of these things sometimes. You're not certainly trying to be irresponsible, but accidents do happen. Talk about fireplace safety a little bit. We talk space heaters, and they seem to really kind of be a problem because they're portable and those kinds of things. The fireplace is in one spot, so we can kind of set up a pretty good perimeter around that, Rob, but still, we do have fireplace problems.
Yes,
when we get into cold weather.
You know, the cold weather comes in, and everyone can see the fireplace chimneys working in the horizon. But there's two problems with it. One is, when you have fireplaces, you also have piles of firewood. We want to make sure that those are kept away from the homes, because that's just another fuel load next to your house. And if you ever have any kind of a problem around that, that's a bigger issue.
Poof.
Fireplaces and chimneys, they should be inspected once a year by a certified chimney specialist. You know, especially this time of year, right before you start to use it. This is a great time. I know that those companies are very busy right now, so you want to go ahead and call them right away so that you can use your fireplace and know that you're safe doing it.
Yeah, get those guys out. And you say a professional inspection. I mean, taking a look is a good idea.
Taking a look's a good idea, but having someone that actually knows. It is the creosote that builds up, and it just creates a backflow, basically, so into your home, and it could cause some bigger issues. But
here again, just drawn on our experience in the newsroom, it seems like a good many fireplace fires really aren't in the fireplace.
Right.
They're in in that stack and on the way out. That pipe gets heated or whatever happens. And isn't it a situation of over time?
Over time, those things wear out, and they'll need to be replaced, and they'll need to be readdressed throughout the time of your home. So
all right, we're coming toward holiday time already. It's hard to believe we're saying that. Seems like we were just in the monsoon, we were just in the monsoon, but it's time to think about those things. Get your fireplace ready, and get a professional, if it's been a while especially, to come out and take a look.
And just real quick, the other side on the fireplace is disposal of the ash. Going back to the coals from a brush fire, it's the same thing. You want to make sure that when you dispose of the ashes out of your fireplace, if it's wood burning, that it's in a metal bucket away from your home and away from your pile of firewood. I've actually had experience where high wind situation, somebody disposed of the coals in a metal bucket, but it was out in an area that had a lot of high sustained winds, by a stack of firewood and took out an entire apartment complex.
Wow.
So it's very important that you're cautious with those coals, because they will stay hot. You would think after 24 hours it's cool, and the reality is that there are still some hot coals in there, so you have to be very careful in your disposal.
Don't use paper grocery bags.
No.
Don't use plastic grocery bags.
No.
Don't use plastic trash cans. We've all seen it.
Yeah,
and we can joke about it because it seems so silly and so far outside the realm of what anybody would do. But it's like you say, Chief, they think it's been a day even.
Right.
And it's cool and they can come up. We've all seen those things happen.
And, this time of year, a lot of times we'll get called to trash can fires because they'll put them in a metal bucket and then after a day or so they'll dump them in their trash can for the trash day. And just by dumping them in there, stirs those hot coals up again. And
we've seen fires even after the truck has come along and taken your stuff.
We've had.
All right, we need to take another short break. Lots of good information today. Rob Zazueta, Scott Freitag, Chino Valley Fire. We're back right after this.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Welcome back to the program again from Chino Valley Fire District Chief Scott Freitag and Public Information Officer Rob Zazueta. And guys, again, we thank you for coming over today. Pleasure. It's just, safety first. We say it and we say it and we say it. And again, Paul David in the newsroom and I have been talking for years about everything we've talked about today. But it bears repeating. And those little things that we don't think about. As we head, Chief, toward holiday time, there's a lot more. I'm sure we'll do another show or two somewhere along the way about kitchen safety and all that. But parting words for our audience today as we talked about all these issues. What's one bit of advice?
Read the directions.
Read the directions.
Yeah.
Good one.
If you're turkey fryers, space heaters, Christmas trees, Christmas lights, burning brush, read the directions. They're there for a reason. I know we often overlook them, but it's very important.
I know space heaters and whatnot, you think about directions in the box, but they're on there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're right on the unit itself so that the directions travel with the unit even if it gets resold or given away, things like that. If I've got a question about any of these kinds of things, can I call you, Rob? Can I call the district and ask, how do I go about burning this area and those kinds of things?
That's exactly what we're here for.
How do I get a hold of you?
You can call us at 636-2442. Or you can look at our website at chinoazfire.com.
And I think we can safely speak for the other districts and departments in our area. They would be happy to get a phone call as well if you have questions about this. Smoke alarms, all those kinds of things. The fire districts and departments are there to help you out. Guys, thanks so much. Scott Freitag, Rob Zazueta with Chino Valley Fire. It's countywide, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday as we tackle the hot topics and talk to the decision makers across Yavapai County. That's Countywide with Brad Miller and Paul David each Tuesday and Thursday on this Yavapai Broadcasting station.